Here is a listening test for you. What is this person saying?
You would have gone straight to the bottom. You would have gone straight to the bottom.
I would have gone with you to the end. I would have gone with you to the end.
Where else was I supposed to bring him? Where else was I supposed to bring him?
Today I have my little whiteboard with me, and we're going to quickly look at 5 elements of spoken English that can sometimes make English speakers difficult to understand. But first, here are the answers to our little test.
You would have gone straight to the bottom. You would have gone straight to the bottom.
I would have gone with you to the end. I would have gone with you to the end.
Where else was I supposed to bring him? Where else was I supposed to bring him?
Many of my high-level English students tell me that they're very frustrated at reaching a high level, but still not being able to understand native speakers when they're speaking very quickly, or not being able to understand series or movies spoken in quick English. I know it's frustrating, and frankly, it's not your fault, because written English and spoken English are 2 completely different systems, and often the details of spoken English are not explicitly taught in the English classroom. I apologize that my voice sounds a little bit gravelly today. I have a little bit of a cold. Once you start to look for these 5 details when you're listening to English, your ears will open up and you'll start to recognize them more and more. Okay, so we're going to begin today with reduced function words. In order to start understanding fast, naturally spoken English, it's important to understand that every language on earth has a specific rhythm to it, and often these rhythms are very different from each other. When our ears are not yet adjusted to the rhythm, it's hard to understand what's going on. Most languages of the world are what is called syllable-timed languages. So languages such as Spanish, French, Polish, Cantonese. These languages look something like this. This means that the amount of time it takes to say a sentence in Spanish, for example, depends on the number of syllables that are in that sentence. English, on the other hand, is what is called a stress-timed language, and it looks something like this. Meaning that it doesn't matter how many syllables are in a sentence in English, the amount of time it takes to say a sentence in English depends on the number of stresses that are in that sentence. Stay with me, hold on. So there are basically 2 types of words in English. We have content words and we have function words. Content words are words like your nouns, your verbs, your adverbs, your adjectives, your question words like why, when, what, your demonstratives like this, that, these, those. And content words in spoken English are usually stressed. That means that we say them strongly. We say them forcefully, like I'm doing right now. The words that are usually unstressed or weak are function words. We can also say reduced. So reduced, weak, unstressed. And function words are a lot of words. Function words are words like articles and the prepositions such as at, to, of, auxiliaries such as will, have, and forms of the verb be, pronouns such as her, him, it, them, conjunctions such as and, or, as, that, relative pronouns such as that, which, who. In spoken English, sometimes we give function words special importance, and so we will stress them. But often in speaking, these kinds of words, function words, are reduced, or they're said in their weak form. Why is this important to know? Well, if you look back at our little picture from a minute ago, you'll see that the function words here are these little shorter people here. If we start listening to an English conversation, expecting all of these function words to sound like adults in the picture, if we're expecting the function words to sound like they look on paper, we are going to be lost. So we need to know what these function words sound like when they are reduced. Let's look at a movie example.
She doesn't want any of her clothes. 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 She doesn't want any of her clothes.
She doesn't want any of her clothes. She doesn't want any of her clothes. She doesn't want any of her clothes. She doesn't want any of her clothes.
She doesn't want any of her clothes.
Does seems to completely disappear here.
She doesn't want any of her clothes.
And want is really stressed.
She doesn't want any of her clothes.
We really need to get used to, we really need to adjust our ears to what function words sound like when they're weakened, when they are reduced. The bad news is that there are a million ways that function words get reduced in English. There's a lot to learn. For example, in speaking, we often do not say can. Can is the strong form of the function word, can. In speaking, we'll often say can. Can. That's the weak form. Can I have a glass of water? Often becomes can.
Can I have a glass of water, please? Can I have a glass of water, please? Can I have a glass of water, please?
Can I have? Can I? Can I? Can I? That's the bad news. There's a lot of different things to learn. The good news is there are fun ways to learn this. You can learn this watching series and watching movies and watching YouTube. So let's look at an example here. I chose some clips that use the word them, which is a function word that is often reduced. Maybe you know, how is them usually reduced in speaking? So in its strong form, it's pronounced them. How do we usually say this in spoken English? M or We're often talking about using a schwa sound, which is That's the most common sound in English, Them, on paper, does not have a schwa in it, them. However, in speaking, we will use a schwa sound and just say take take All right, so let's look at an example.
I don't know where they are. You let them go. I don't know where they are. You let them go. I don't know where they are. You let them go. I don't know where they are. You let them go.
You let them go. You let them go. You let them go.
I don't know where they are. You let them go.
If you're looking for let them go, you're going to be lost, right? So we need to learn to recognize function words are often reduced. Here's another one.
Where else was I supposed to bring him? Where else was I supposed to bring him? Where else was I supposed to bring him?
Where else was I supposed to bring them? Bring them. Bring them. Supposed to is also reduced here to supposed to, supposed to, supposed to. Not supposed to, but supposed to, supposed to, supposed to.
Where else was I supposed to bring him?
To is a strong form that often gets reduced to supposed to, supposed to. Where else was I supposed to bring them? At first, this can seem annoying, frustrating, completely overwhelming, but once you start to look for it, okay, to is going to be to. When I watch series, I'm not going to look for to, I'm going to look for to. And this is also in certain words, today, tomorrow. In speaking, you won't often hear today. You'll hear today, today. You won't often hear tomorrow, tomorrow. You'll hear tomorrow, tomorrow. And once you start to look for this, you see it everywhere. Put on a series in English that you love, that you find interesting. Put the English subtitles on. Read the English subtitles, but listen for the function words. Listen for the reduced function words and how they're actually pronounced. It's going to blow your mind. And it will open up your ears. Next up on our list, number 2. As we start to talk about connected speech, I want to make it clear that you do not need to use connected speech when you're talking, when you're speaking. You can use non-connected speech. You don't have to use connected speech, and English speakers will understand you. It's perfectly fine. But it is essential to know connected speech in order to understand spoken English. Okay, just to clarify that. I don't want you to feel stressed, like, oh, I can't speak because I don't know how to use connected speech. That's not at all what this is about, okay? This is about understanding, about listening. If I say to you, I'm gonna go. Sorry, I'm gonna go. Sorry, I'm gonna go. Sorry, I'm gonna go. What did I just say? Yeah, on paper, in written English, I said, I'm going to go. However, in spoken English, this can often sound like I'm gonna go, which then gets reduced to I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. Whew. Numbers 1 and 2 are intimately connected here. As we've said, in speaking, much of the time, content words are said stressed, function words are said weak. We end up smushing all the words together or connecting them, which we call connected speech. When a word ends with a consonant sound and the next word begins with a vowel sound, often it will seem like the two words blend into each other. This is especially true when the second word is a function word. Let's look at some examples. Stop it becomes stop it, stop it. Grab it becomes grab it, grab it. Came in becomes came in, came in. With it, with it, with it. Washed it, washed it, washed it, washed it. Back out, back out, back out. Leave early becomes leave early, leave early. It sounds like one word, leave early. So if you're a little bit familiar with English pronunciation terminology, this is called assimilation, or more specifically, patalization. Very often when you hear the words did you in spoken English, you will not hear did you. You'll hear did you or did ya. And this sound combination is heard all the time in movies and TV series and spoken English. Let's look at a little example here.
Who'd you tell it to? Who'd you tell it to? Who'd you tell it to? Who'd you tell it to?
Who'd you tell it to? Who'd you tell it to? Who'd you tell it to?
Who'd you tell it to?
And we have a little extra element here, little extra element of fun with who. Who'd ya? Who'd ya? Not who did you, who'd ya?
What? Who did you hear that from? What? Who did you hear that from? What? Who did you hear that from? What? Who did you hear that from?
She stumbles a little bit at the beginning here.
What? Who did you hear that from?
Who'd you hear that from? Who'd you hear that from? Who'd you hear that from? You see how if you're looking for who did you, you're going to be lost because she said who'd ya? Who'd you hear that from?
Huh? Who'd you see? Huh? Who'd you see? Huh? Who'd you see?
Huh? Who'd you see? Who'd you see? Who'd you see? Who'd ya, who'd ya, who'd ya, who'd ya, who'd ya, who'd ya. And when you connect a vowel with another vowel sound in English, we usually actually add a sound in between the vowels. We'll often add either a Y sound, so for example, be on time, be on time, be on time, be on time. You can hear that little Y sound in between the two vowels, be on time. It just helps us make this little liaison. It feels more comfortable in our mouths to add a little bit of a Y sound, be on time. Or we'll add a W sound, a W sound between two vowels. So for example, blue angel, blue angel, blue angel, that W, blue angel. It just feels a little bit more comfortable, easier to make that slide to the second word, blue angel. Okay, moving on to number 3, which is going to be contractions. In my experience, my students often don't like to use contractions. A lot of my students, advanced students, don't feel comfortable using contractions in speaking, and that's perfectly fine. Like I said before, you don't have to use these in speaking, but it's very important to recognize them when you hear them. Contractions are everywhere in spoken English, as you may have noticed, and sometimes they're not said the same way that they are spelled, excuse me, on paper. So let's look at a few examples.
You should have listened to your mother. You should have listened to your mother. You should have listened to your mother. You should have listened to your mother.
I know I've talked about this before in other videos, but it's an important one. So should have becomes should've as a contraction, which becomes shoulda in spoken English. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. You'll hear this all the time. So let's look at some examples with coulda as well.
You know, you could have gone with Emily. You know, you could have gone with Emily.
You know, you could have gone with Emily. You know, you could have gone with Emily.
Again, if you're listening for could have and you hear coulda, you're going to be lost, right? So it's very important to recognize this. It's important to know that will is often contracted, so sometimes students aren't looking for this, they're looking for will and they miss it because we often will not say something like they will go. We'll say they'll go, they'll go, they'll go. Sometimes you won't even hear the contraction in speaking. So for example, they've finished. You'll just hear they finished. You won't necessarily hear that they've finished in spoken English. Often you'll just hear they've finished.
You're welcome to come back later and talk to my workers once they've finished. You're welcome to come back later and talk to my workers once they've finished.
The v gets completely reduced in the contraction in spoken English. I'm sorry guys, I know this is frustrating. It's very frustrating. Spoken English. Okay, let's talk about number 4, pronouncing final consonant groups correctly. Okay, so as I understand it, many languages, perhaps most languages, do not allow groups of consonants, so many consonants at the end of one syllable, because those languages probably make sense. In English, however, English allows a maximum of 4 consonants at the end of a syllable, or at the end of a word usually. For example, in the word glimpsed, 4 consonants here at the end of this word. At the end of this, it's just one syllable, glimpsed. But we have 4 crazy consonant sounds at the end here. And then words ending in 2 or 3 consonant sounds are very common in English. So for example, changed, worlds, next, watched. So how do we make these words easier to pronounce in English? I know that we're talking a little bit about spoken pronunciation here as opposed to listening pronunciation, so I won't spend too much time on this, but just know that if you see a group, a cluster of consonant sounds in an English word, it's okay to take your time and pronounce each letter slowly. Don't feel like you need to rush through the word to try to sound more fluent or anything like that. Okay, and number 5. What is number 5? Number 5, vowel sounds. Vowel sounds. Most students, all students, maybe at some point at least, have trouble with English vowel sounds for a lot of different reasons. One reason is that there are so many different varieties of English, so many different accents and dialects, and in the different accents of English, vowels are pronounced differently. This is a source of great frustration for many students, but to be honest with you, it's even difficult for native speakers. You know, when I hear speakers of English from certain places around the world, it's also difficult for me sometimes to understand often because of the vowel sounds. And also it's hard because there are just more vowel sounds in English than in a lot of other languages in the world. For example, Spanish and Japanese have 5 vowel sounds as far as I'm aware. So their vowel systems look something like this. And here is the English vowel system in a table here for you. So you can see how there are a lot of vowel sounds in English. If you have never seen a table like this, it's designed to show you where the vowel sound is made in your mouth. Essentially, when you're learning how to make a vowel sound in English, you're learning where to put your tongue, where your tongue should go, and whether your lips are in a circle, like this, or like pulled back more like in a smile. That's it. Where is your tongue, and how are your lips placed? I don't want to make you cry by asking you to study all of the vowels of English in this one video. However, I do want to practice some of the tense vowels versus the lax vowels. So we're going to quickly go over how to put your mouth for tense vowels versus lax vowels, because this is such a common problem. And then I'm going to mix them together and I'm gonna sort of quiz you, sort of test you, okay? I promise it won't be too painful. All right, we're gonna start with the 4 tense vowels of English. I want you to smile as you pronounce these vowels. And I've got my rubber band here. I'm gonna stretch it as we're saying these vowels so that you have a visual of tense vowels. E, E, B, 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 bay, 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 boo, 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 boo. My mouth is rounded. Bow, 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 bow. Okay, let's look at lax vowels. So we're gonna loosen up, relax a little bit, loosen up our rubber band. It's not tense. Lax, relaxed. Sit, sit, sit. Lip, lip, lip. Bid, bid, bid. Relaxed. Said, said, said. Mess, mess, mess. Read, read, read. Relaxed. Book, book, book. Push, push, push. Hood, hood, hood. These 2 lax vowels are often confused in English. They're confusing, they're very similar, so we're gonna practice them together. Repeat after me. Rid, rid, red, red. Pin, pin, pen, pen, pen. Pit, pit, pet, pet. Mint, mint. Meant, meant. Okay, quiz. Which one am I saying? Red, red, red. Pen, 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 pen. Pit, pit, pit. Meant, 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 meant. Repeat after me and try to determine which sounds are most difficult for you to distinguish and produce. These are minimal pairs, which are words that are all the same except for their vowel sound. Meet, mit, mate, met, stewed, stood, lead, lid, late, let, luke, look, sheep, ship, waste, west, pool, pull, reason, risen, main, men, could, could. It's a really good idea to practice minimal pairs in sentences. So for example, don't sleep on the subway platform versus don't slip on the subway platform. Sleep, slip. This might sound like a tiny, tiny difference, and it is, but English speakers can hear this difference. If you can't do them right now, don't worry. It takes practice, and to practice, you have to make mistakes. So please don't let this keep you from practicing. I want you to practice as much as possible. I'm so sorry, guys. My throat is just really dry right now. I don't feel so good. So I think I'm gonna keep this video short. Actually, it's probably not very short, but I have to stop. I will see you in my next video. If you want to get extra lessons, tips, and other things, I have been sending things to my newsletter email list, so make sure you're on that. You can sign up for that down below. It's completely free. I love reading your comments, guys. Like, honestly, they truly make my day. It's the best part of doing this YouTube channel is reading your comments. So I appreciate them very much. Thank you. I'll see you soon.